Okay, turning back to George Berkeley, I would hope that after last time, the philosophical position that he develops comes into focus rather readily, along with his argument for it. You may have thought initially that the thing he was trying to establish was pretty implausible. But by the time you see how he does it, I think the plausibility rating improves almost 100%. That is to say, if he can support those three basic philosophical positions that are involved, then his denial of the existence of matter, substratum, independently of any mind, that denial seems to be sustainable. Insofar as the concept of matter is an abstract idea rather than an empirical notion, and as a nominalist he maintains that we just don't have abstract ideas, the word matter has no reference, you see. So when you're talking of the reality of matter, you've no idea what people are talking about. Locke himself had said, matter is something I know not what, you see. Now, similarly with his mentalism, because if it is the case that all we know about material objects derives from our ideas of primary and secondary qualities, and if it is the case that we never have primary quality ideas independently of secondary qualities, or vice versa, and that both primary and secondary qualities are relative to all sorts of observation conditions, then it seems to follow that both primary and secondary qualities in the same condition, namely they're subjective. They're simply qualities of our ideas. And we've no evidence for any unchanging qualities, or if not unchanging qualities, at least objective qualities, inhering in material substrata out there. So his conclusion there seems to be that as far as the empirical evidence is concerned, all that we know is minds and their ideas. And our ideas of material objects are just that. Ideas, compounded out of primary and secondary qualities with no notion of matter. So, mentalism. Well, of course, if he stopped there, there would be an immediate objection. How do you account for the ordered uniformity of nature? Particularly in the Newtonian age, where nature was understood in such ordered fashion, fixed laws, fixed forces, so forth, this perfect machine. How do you account for that? In addition to the question, how do you account for the ideas you have if they're not caused by external material things? Well, his line of thought here is, I think, very simple. His starting point is essentially that of Descartes, I think. And what I think is ideas. Ideas are the objects of thought, what we think about. I think ideas. But then he goes this way: among our ideas we have to distinguish between active and passive ideas. If you like, voluntary and involuntary ideas. Because there are some ideas that I have that I choose to have. My idea of a fairy giraffe with butterfly wings is a voluntary idea because I thought it up, I put it together. On the other hand, there are other ideas that are involuntary. Namely, most of the sense impressions which come to us simply register uninvited on the consciousness. Involuntary ideas. And while it's plain enough that I can be the cause of active ideas, voluntary ideas, it's not at all evident that I could be the cause of passive ideas, because oftentimes I get such ideas not only uninvited but unwanted. Ideas of pain, for instance. So there must be some other cause than my mind for these involuntary or passive ideas. Now, ideas are mental things. They must have mental causes. So this other cause must be some other mind. Now, he doesn't entertain the idea of mental telepathy, particularly that you would be giving me all sorts of ideas. No, the next step in his thinking, though, is to take note of the uniformities of nature. That is to say, the uniformities of our experience. The fact that there are predictabilities within the experience that we have made up of our ideas. The fact that everybody in this room is hearing roughly the same things at this juncture. The fact that we live in a world of common sense experience, common order, common predictability, public evidence, so forth. So there must be, as the cause of this sort of uniformity, there must be some greater mind, some supreme intelligence, some infinite spirit, God. So that God is the other mind that's needed in the case of passive ideas. God not only causes our passive ideas, but he gives us an ordered world of experience with all of its predictabilities. He is not only the creator of our finite minds, he is the one who informs our finite minds, so that our sensations are a kind of divine language. God's language to us, by which we grasp the order of things to which we have to adjust, into which we have to fit. And in this way, we participate in God's ideas. It's sort of an empiricist's equivalent of saying that the human logos participates in the divine logos. The human mind participates in the divine mind, inasmuch as our experience is the ordered world of ideas which God has and gives to us. So God then, it turns out, is the sufficient cause, not only the necessary cause, but the sufficient cause of not only all that is, but of all ideas that occur passively to minds that exist. So God then is, in that very real sense, creator of the world of nature, ex nihilo, as well as creator of finite minds. Well, that's clear enough, I take it. And it's in the light of that that you hopefully have read that little poem that Kaufman, if it can be graced with that, that Kaufman inserts on 237 just before the selection begins. Did you read that? There was a young man who said, God must think it exceedingly odd if he finds that this tree continues to be when there's no one around on the quad. You know, it's the tree that falls in the forest when there's nobody around to hear it. Does it make a noise? There's the tree that's on the quad when there's nobody around to see it. God must think it exceedingly odd if he finds that this tree continues to be when there's no one around on the quad. Dear sir, your astonishment's odd. I'm always about in the quad. And that's why the tree will continue to be, since observed by yours faithfully, God. So it's not that the world pops in and out of existence. No, it exists endlessly in God's mind from the moment he first thought it up. Okay, now doubtless you've thought of all sorts of objections. Kaufman gives us some, but let's pick yours up first.
I'm kind of curious. What would you say about a person who is suffering from hallucinations? Is God basically playing with his mind?
Or when you see optical illusions,
Not illusions, but somebody who's actually what we would find
hallucinating.
who's
Yeah.
seeing things which the rest of us
And you want to say, really, hallucinations are things we cause, but they're not voluntary. You see, is that an exception to his way of distinguishing the voluntary and the involuntary? And I think he'd have to say yes. I don't know that he discusses it. I think he'd have to say yes. There is some mental malfunction by virtue of which we, if you like, imagine ideas, like a person who has an overly active imagination and is haunted by, you see. You could say like dreams, unless he